Hello, environmental science scholars, and welcome to another video lesson within tutorial 2. So right now we're looking at 2.2, primary productivity. But first, a quick recap of the process of photosynthesis if we have not done tutorial 1 yet. So primary producers, such as this plant here, perform photosynthesis, which is a series of chemical reactions occurring within their plant cells where they capture solar energy or energy from the sun. They use carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and also water they get from their environment. And then they use all of that to essentially produce their food source, which is glucose, a sugar, which they're going to be storing. And then they're also going to be releasing oxygen along the way. So, again, quick recap. What group of organisms perform photosynthesis? Awesome. Primary producers, specifically photoautotrophs, such as plants, algae, and some bacteria. So it's kind of a crazy uh, process because glucose is made out of carbon. So essentially, plants are converting carbon that they're getting from the atmosphere, from the air, which is in a gas form, and they're going to be using it and converting it to then make glucose, which is going to be their sugar and their food source. So all of that is going to be then adding to their biomass and tissues, helping producers grow. So you're going to be watching a brief video clip after this lesson, kind of looking at that process right there. Is really fascinating. So why is productivity important? So those that energy that those primary producers, such as these little algae, freshwater algae right here, they're capturing that energy from the sun and converting it to chemical energy that's going to be stored within them. So these little critters, such as these little copepods, which are zooplankton living in a lake, if they ate that, they're consuming and also getting that energy stored in them as well. And then it gets passed up the food chain or the food web, where it could potentially then end up in us. However, not all of the energy produced during photosynthesis is actually stored in the plant, which is kind of crazy to think. So, kind of think of your paycheck in regards to that. Within your paycheck, you have your gross pay. That's actually how much you really, truly earned. But do you take all of that home and use it? No. You have deductions or like taxes and Medicaid and retirement and stuff like that, maybe health insurance that gets taken out, where then you have your net pay. That's actually how much you store and then take home and maybe put in the bank and use or do something with it. So it's kind of the same thing as photosynthesis. Think of the total amount of photosynthesis that a plant does, but actually some of that energy that they are capturing is lost to the environment. So not as much is going to be stored within the plant. So where does all that energy go? So within like looking at if we have a 100% of solar energy coming to Earth, actually 99% of that plants actually do not use or primary producers do not use. Only 1% that is hitting that primary producer is actually used and captured by photosynthesis. Think of again that as your total photosynthesis, that gross photosynthesis. But within that, again, not all of that energy is used. Some of it is lost along the way. So 60% of that the plant obtains during photosynthesis is actually lost due to cellular respiration. So they're going to be breaking down that sugar, using it to do work and live. And 60% of that captured carbon from photosynthesis is lost to the atmosphere, back to the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide. So only 40% from that total photosynthesis process is actually used by the plant to help them grow and reproduce. And that's what we call their net primary productivity. That's what they can actually use to grow and reproduce. So it's kind of crazy to think about. A lot of it is lost along the way. It's not a very efficient process. So energy from the sun is converted to chemical energy stored in the chemical bonds of sugar produced during photosynthesis. And so here that's kind of like just looking at exactly what I just talked about. Carbon lost due to cellular respiration to the environment, about 60% of that, and only 40% is stored to help them grow. So help calculate that. This is the net primary productivity equation. Looks very similar to your net pay equation, whereas this is the total amount of carbon that is stored or sorry, captured or made during photosynthesis minus the carbon that's lost to cellular respiration. The difference between the two is actually how much the plant is using to grow and reproduce. And so that's going to be represented, their units is grams of carbon stored per square meter per year. So, how much carbon was stored per square meter of, let's say, a forest per year due to photosynthesis? And so, here are the different vocabulary terms I essentially have already gone over, but you're going to be needing these for your unit notes packet. And so let's calculate that. Let's say a forest in North America has a GPP, a gross productivity of 2.5 grams of carbon per meter square of forest per year. But again, not all of that carbon is going to be used and stored in those trees. About 60% of that is going to be lost to cellular respiration. So about 1.5 of that 2.5 is actually lost to the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide due to cellular respiration. So how much is actually stored in these trees? What is this for is NPP? What's their take home carbon? So here's the equation again. It's going to be the GPP, which is the 2.5 minus the 1.5 of the respiration, and the total amount of carbon that's stored per meter squared of a forest per year in this example is about 1 gram of carbon per meter squared per year is actually stored in those trees. So these are some very quick critical thinking questions. My question for you is, do all biomes around the world have the same amount of primary producers present in them? Do all biomes around the world then have the same levels of primary productivity? Let's take a look at this map, this graphic. This is actually obtained from NASA's website and is showing primary productivity levels throughout the world, different days of the year. You can see time on the bottom. And you can see there are areas that are, kind of clear or tan in color and not going to have as much primary productivity versus areas that are green. And you can see during certain times of the year, we have different levels of primary productivity. But is it the same around the whole entire world? No. We definitely do not have primary producers in this region. This is the Saharan desert as much as we do in these tropical rainforests in Brazil. So there's different factors influencing how much primary productivity is going on in a certain area. How much solar radiation, how much sunlight is it getting? What's the temperature? Is it warm? Is it cold? How much rainfall do you have? A lot, a little, in the medium levels? So, what type of climate would have the highest levels of productivity the most? Perfect. Areas that are warmer, more rain, more sunlight will have more of the productivity. Hence, think of that map. Areas right around the equator where it's warmer, wetter, more sunlight, more primary productivity, more plant growth. And you can see differences among biomes as well. Tropical rainforests have the highest amount of net primary productivity. These are the units down here, grams of carbon per meter squared per year as far as terrestrial biomes go. And then looking at aquatic biomes, actually, swamps and marshes, which we have a lot around here in Northwest Indiana, they have a lot of primary productivity going on there. Lots of algae and trees and all kinds of plants. So you can kind of compare and contrast the different biomes, which we'll get into more about biomes in a future tutorial within this unit. All right, guys, that takes care of our unit for today. Make sure you do your notes and answer those questions. Bye.